Once upon a time, in a big village surrounded by tall palm trees and wide rivers, there lived a girl named Kachi. She was the only daughter of Chief Koko, the richest man in the village. Kachi was not just beautiful, she was like the morning sun, bright and golden. Her eyes sparkled like fresh water, and her skin was smooth like fine silk. People admired her. Women wished to have a daughter like her, and men couldn't stop staring whenever she passed. When she walked through the market, traders would pause and whisper, "See how beautiful she is." Even little children would stop playing just to look at her. But there was something strange, something nobody talked about in front of her. Everywhere Kachi went, she smelled. It was not the smell of sweat after a long day. It was not the smell of food or the smell of dirty clothes. It was something worse, something sharp, something sour, something that clung to the air and refused to leave. It followed her like a stubborn fly that refused to be chased away. People tried to ignore it. After all, she was the daughter of a great chief. Who would dare insult her? Some whispered behind her back. Some said it was her body. Others blamed the food she ate, but no one knew the truth. The truth, it was her pants that smelled. It stinks. Everywhere she sat, the smell remained. If she stood too close, people held their breath. But because she was rich, they smiled at her and pretended not to notice. Kachi did not know. Nobody told her. She only knew that people admired her from far, but never came close enough to stay. And so, the beautiful girl with the secret smell lived, not knowing the whispers, not knowing the truth. But one day, the truth would come, and it would change everything. Kachi grew up like a flower in the middle of a dry land, shining, glowing, impossible to ignore. The older she got, the more beautiful she became. Men admired her. Boys, young and old, turned their heads whenever she passed. Some stopped mid-sentence just to watch her walk. Traders in the market would forget their change, and even elders would nod their heads and say, "Ah, this one is too beautiful." But there was a problem, a big problem. The moment any man got too close, they turned away. Their faces changed, their eyes filled with confusion, their noses wrinkled, like they had just walked into a pit of rotten fish. And then they ran. They did not say why, they did not complain, but one by one, they left. Kachi noticed. She saw how men came close but never stayed, how they smiled from far but never wanted to talk too long, how even those who gathered courage to approach her would quickly find an excuse to leave. At first, she didn't understand. Maybe they are just shy, she told herself. Maybe they respect me too much, she thought. But as the years went by, and as more and more men ran away, Kachi started to wonder. She started to feel it in her heart, an emptiness, a sadness she could not explain. She had never felt love, not the kind of love that made the heart beat fast, not the kind that made people whisper under the moonlight or walk hand in hand by the river. The only love she knew was her father's love. Chief Koko adored his daughter. He never let her feel less than a queen. He bought her the finest clothes, the most expensive perfumes, the softest shoes. "My daughter is perfect," he always said. And Kachi believed him, but deep inside, she wanted more. She wanted someone to love her, not because she was rich, not because she was beautiful, but because of who she was. One afternoon, as the sun sat lazily in the sky, Kachi walked to her favorite spot near the stream. The water was clear, flowing gently, carrying leaves down its path. Birds chirped, trees swayed. The wind hummed a soft song. She sat on a smooth rock, throwing little stones into the water, watching the ripples grow and disappear. Then she heard footsteps. She turned. A man stood there watching her. His name was Oti. And from the moment he saw Kachi, his heart refused to beat normally again. Oti was different. From the moment his eyes landed on Kachi, he could not look away. His heart pounded like a talking drum. He had never seen a woman so beautiful. The way the sun touched her skin, the way her hair danced in the wind, the way her lips curved when she smiled. It was as if she was carved by the gods themselves. He stepped closer. He did not hesitate. "Hello, beautiful," Oti said, his voice warm like the afternoon sun. Kachi looked up, surprised. Men never stayed this close. They always walked away before they even said her name. But Oti stood there smiling. "My name is Oti. What is yours?" he asked. Kachi blinked, unsure. Was this real? Was someone truly talking to her? She swallowed and answered shyly, "My name is Kachi." Oti sat beside her on the rock. "Kachi," he repeated as if testing the name on his tongue. A beautiful name for a beautiful girl. Kachi felt something strange in her chest, something warm, something soft. No man had ever sat beside her this long. No man had ever looked at her without flinching. Oti did not wrinkle his nose. He did not shift uncomfortably. He did not make an excuse to leave. Instead, he talked, and Kachi, she laughed. For the first time in years, she laughed freely. From that day, Oti and Kachi became inseparable. Every evening, they met by the stream. They sat side by side, throwing stones into the water, sharing stories about their childhood, their dreams, their fears. Oti never mentioned her smell. Not once. Kachi felt safe with him. She felt wanted. She felt seen. One evening, as the sky turned orange and the birds flew home, Oti took Kachi's hand. His touch was firm but gentle, like a warm breeze on a cool night. "Kachi," he said, looking deep into her eyes, "you make me happy. I want to make you happy too. Will you be my wife?" Kachi's heart jumped. Her breath caught in her throat. This was it. This was what she had been waiting for. She squeezed his hand, her eyes shining like the stars above. Yes, Oti. Yes. The wedding was set. For the first time in her life, Kachi felt truly loved. But the night of the wedding would change everything. The day of the wedding came. The village was alive with music, drums beating like a joyful heartbeat, flutes singing sweet songs into the air. People gathered in their finest clothes, their eyes wide with admiration. "Kachi is getting married," they whispered. She looked like a princess. Her dress sparkled in the sunlight. Her gold earrings dangled like tiny stars, and her hands were decorated with the finest henna. Perfumes from all over the land had been poured on her skin, sweet-smelling oils, scented powders, everything money could buy. But the smell was still there. It was softer, hidden beneath the perfumes, but it did not go away. It clung to her like a shadow, waiting for the right moment to rise again. Oti did not care. He smiled as he held her hand. He danced with her, laughed with her, promised her a future filled with love and happiness. The villagers clapped, cheered, and wished them well. "Finally, Kachi has found love," they said. When the night came, Oti took his bride to the house her father had gifted them. A big house filled with riches, soft beds, and beautiful curtains. Kachi was happy. She had waited for this moment her whole life, to have a man by her side, to no longer be alone. But the night had its own plans. As the candlelight flickered and the room became quiet, Oti moved closer. He lifted her veil, touched her cheek, and smiled. Kachi, shy but excited, reached for the knots of her wedding dress. Slowly, she undressed, her heart beating fast, her hands slightly shaking. Then she removed her pants. The smell filled the room instantly, like trapped smoke escaping a fire, like a rotten fruit bursting open, like something ancient, something cursed, something alive. Oti froze. His eyes widened. His smile disappeared. Then he choked. Ah! Ah! Kachi! He shouted, covering his nose, stumbling backward. Kachi's heart stopped. Oti gasped for air, waving his hands in front of his face, his body shaking as if he had been thrown into a pit of filth. His eyes watered, his stomach twisted. Kachi, you smell so bad. I can't live like this. The words hit Kachi like a spear to the chest. She stood there frozen as Oti grabbed his bags, threw in his clothes, and stormed out of the house. He did not look back. He did not hesitate. He ran as if the night itself was chasing him. Kachi sat alone, the silence of the room heavier than anything she had ever felt. Tears filled her eyes, but they did not fall. Slowly, she stood up, wrapped herself in a cloth, and walked back to her father's house. When she arrived, Chief Coco was waiting. She fell into his arms, sobbing. Papa, he said I smell. Chief Coco held her close, stroked her hair, and whispered, Don't worry, my daughter. Another one will come. Kachi believed him, but she did not know that another heartbreak was waiting just around the corner. Days passed, weeks followed. The pain of Oti leaving still sat heavy in Kachi's heart, but life did not stop. And just like her father promised, another man came. His name was Kasali. Kasali was not just handsome. He was the kind of man that made women's hearts race. His smile was bright, his laugh was full of joy, and his words were as smooth as melted butter. When he spoke, Kachi forgot her sadness. When he laughed, her heart felt light again. When he held her hand, she thought maybe, just maybe this time, love had found her for real. Kasali was different. He did not just admire her beauty. He made her feel like the most special woman in the world. Kachi, you are my queen, he would say. I will love you forever, he whispered into her ear. And Kachi believed him. One day, under the shtani of a big mango tree, Kasali knelt down, held her hand, and said, Marry me, Kachi. Let me give you the happiness you deserve. Kachi's heart leapt with joy. Yes, she said without thinking. The wedding was beautiful, just like the first one. The villagers gathered again, clapped their hands, and smiled. Kachi is lucky. Another man has come for her, they said. Chief Coco was pleased. You see, my daughter, you are not the problem. The right man will always come, he told her. Kachi smiled, believing his words, but the night had a secret waiting. When the wedding was over, Kasali took Kachi to their new home, a grand house filled with soft chairs, golden lamps, and gifts from the guests. Kachi, full of hope, stood before her new husband, ready to begin a new life. But the moment was short-lived. Kasali's smile faded. His eyes turned cold. Do you really think I love you? He sneered, stepping back. Kachi's heart dropped. What are you saying, Kasali? She asked, her voice small, afraid. I only married you because of your father's wealth. Did you think a man like me would love a girl who stinks? Kachi's hands trembled. No, Kasali, you love me. You said, love you. Kasali laughed sharp and wicked. I was only waiting for the wedding to take everything I could. Your father is rich, but you are nothing but a cursed girl. Tears filled Kachi's eyes. Kasali, please don't do this. But Kasali did not care. He stepped forward and grabbed her, his hands rough, his eyes filled with disgust. Let's see if I can force myself to touch you, he said cruelly. And then he made the mistake that every man before him had made. He pulled off her pants. The smell exploded into the room, thick, heavy, deadly. It wrapped around them like a choking smoke, filling every corner, crawling into Kasali's nose like a living thing. His face twisted, his stomach turned. He gagged, he gasped, he choked. What is this? He cried, stumbling backward, his hands on his throat as if he were drowning in the air. Without a second thought, Kasali ran to the bed, grabbed his bags, stuffed them with whatever his hands could reach. Money, gifts, jewelry. Then bolted out of the house. He did not look back. Kachi stood frozen, her knees weak, her heart breaking for the second time. Then, like a river overflowing after heavy rain, the tears came. She ran back to her father's house, her cries filling the night. Chief Koko, waiting as always, opened his arms. My daughter, don't cry. That one was not for you. Another will come. But this time, Kachi was not so sure. The days rolled into weeks. The weeks crawled into months. But the pain in Kachi's heart never left. She tried to move on. She tried to forget. But the whispers in the village did not stop. Did you hear? Another husband ran away from Kachi. Ah, that smell is not ordinary. Maybe she is cursed. Such a beauty wasted. But Chief Koko did not listen to them. Kachi, don't worry. Another one will come, he told her, patting her back. And just like before, another man came, then another, and another. They all came with smiles, sweet words, and promises of forever. I will never leave you. You are the woman of my dreams. Together, we will build a happy home. Kachi believed them. She let herself hope. But the story was always the same. Some men ran away the very night of the wedding, their feet barely touching the ground as they escaped into the darkness. Some took her father's money, the wedding gifts, the gold bracelets meant for her, and disappeared without a trace. Some promised to stay, promised to love her, but left before they even paid the bride price. One by one, they all ran. Kachi became tired. Tired of hoping, tired of believing, tired of waiting for love that never stayed. One morning, as the village roosters crowed and the sky painted itself in soft pink, Kachi sat in front of her father's house, staring into nothing. Chief Koko came and sat beside her. My daughter, why are you sitting here like a lost child? He asked. Kachi sighed. Her voice was empty. Papa, I am tired. Tired of what? Tired of love. Tired of men. Tired of trying. Chief Koko frowned. Ah, my daughter, you are too beautiful to think like this. Don't mind them. Those men were not good enough for you. But this time, Kachi did not believe him. She had spent years chasing love. Now she was done. She packed away her wedding clothes, put away her perfumes, and sat inside the house all day, making scarves with her hands. No more men, no more weddings, no more heartbreaks. If love wanted her, let it come and find her. But she would no longer search for it. Then one morning, Kachi sat by the stream, alone. She picked up small stones, threw them into the water, and watched the ripples dance and disappear. This was how she spent her days now. No weddings, no heartbreaks, just silence. Then she felt it. Someone tapping her gently on the shoulder. She turned quickly. A man stood before her. He was tall, but not too tall. His face was calm, his eyes deep, like a river that had many secrets. His clothes were simple, yet something about him felt different. Hello, the man said, his voice smooth like palm oil dripping from a spoon. Kachi blinked. My name is Danny. What is yours? Kachi hesitated. No man had spoken to her like this before. No stuttering, no nervousness, no rushing to leave. She swallowed and said softly, I am Kachi. Danny smiled. That is a beautiful name. Kachi looked away, her fingers playing with the hem of her scarf. She was not used to this, not used to a man looking at her like she was just a normal girl, not used to someone standing so close and not stepping back. Can I sit? Danny asked. Kachi nodded. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the sound of the water. Then Danny spoke. Do you come here often? Yes, Kachi said. It is quiet here. I like quiet places too, Danny said. But sometimes it is nice to see new things. Kachi just nodded. Danny did not say much after that. But when he finally stood up to leave, he smiled at her again and said, Maybe I will see you tomorrow. Kachi did not say yes. She did not say no. But when the next day came, she found herself walking to the stream again. And there he was, waiting. That day, Danny did not sit. Instead, he stretched out his hand and said, Come with me. Kachi hesitated. Where are we going? She asked. To the market, Danny said. There are things I want to show you. Kachi almost said no. She had never walked through the market before. The maids always went on her behalf. But there was something about Danny, something steady, something kind. So she placed her hand in his and followed. And for the first time in her life, she walked through the market like an ordinary girl. The noise, the smells, the shouts of traders calling for buyers, everything felt new. Have you ever tasted roasted corn? Danny asked. No, Kachi admitted. Danny bought one, broke it in half, and gave her a piece. She took a bite. Crunchy, sweet, hot. She smiled. Danny smiled too. They walked past traders selling colorful fabrics, women pounding yam, men laughing loudly as they carried baskets of fruits. Danny pointed at things, told her stories, made her laugh, and for the first time Kachi forgot. She forgot her sadness. She forgot her past. She forgot that she had once given up on love. At the end of the day, as they walked back, Danny turned to her and said, You should come out more, Kachi. The world has many things to see, and for the first time in a long time, Kachi felt happy, truly happy. The days passed like a gentle breeze, and Kachi found herself looking forward to every moment with Danny. He was not like the others. He did not rush. He did not make empty promises. He did not whisper sweet words only to disappear when the night came. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Danny held Kachi's hand and said, I want to meet your father. Kachi's heart skipped. Why? She asked, though deep inside she already knew. Because I want to marry you, Danny said simply. Kachi swallowed. Marry? Her fingers trembled, her heart raced. Marriage was supposed to be a happy thing, a dream, a moment every girl longed for. But for Kachi, marriage had been nothing but a road leading to pain. Men had come, men had run. She had lost count of how many wedding nights ended in tears. But Danny was different. He had been different from the start. So she nodded. Okay. The next day, Danny came with his parents. They sat in Chief Coco's house, speaking in calm voices, discussing the future like it was something certain. There was no big celebration, no loud drums, no village gossip, no crowd whispering and waiting to see if another husband would flee. The wedding was simple, done in the parlor, just a handful of people around. No golden decorations, no perfume poured to hide the smell. Just two people standing before the elders, joining their lives together. Kachi was happy, but she was also afraid. She smiled, but her heart was heavy. What if this night ended like the others? What if Danny ran away too? What if she woke up alone again? That night, as the house grew quiet and the fire in the lantern flickered softly, Kachi sat on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking. Danny watched her, his face gentle. "Are you afraid?" he asked. Kachi did not answer. She already knew what would happen. The moment always started the same way. The smile, the closeness, the touch, then the smell, the disgust, the running. Kachi took a deep breath and reached for her clothes. Slowly, she removed them, her hands cold as ice. Then she removed her pants. The smell rose, thick, heavy, rotten. It filled the air like a dark spirit, wrapping around them, refusing to leave. Kachi's eyes widened in shock. For the first time, even she could smell it. It was unbearable. Danny coughed. His face twisted. He stepped back, covering his nose. He ran to the window, pushed it open, and took in deep gulps of air. Kachi's heart cracked. She sat on the bed, her hands gripping the sheets, her chest rising and falling with each painful breath. "Kachi, why do you smell this bad?" Danny asked. His voice not angry, not disgusted, just confused. Kachi did not answer. She did not cry out. She did not try to explain. She just sat there, silent, waiting for him to run, waiting to hear the sound of the door slamming, waiting for her nightmare to come true once again. But Danny did not run. He turned to her, walked back to the bed, and did something no man had ever done before. He wrapped his arms around her, hugged her, held her close. Kachi stiffened. "It's okay," Danny whispered. And for the first time in her life, Kachi felt something she had never felt before: hope. The next morning, the sun peeked through the window, casting golden rays across the room. Birds sang outside, the village slowly waking to the sound of roosters crowing. Kachi stirred, her eyes heavy from the long night. Then she saw it. A tray of food beside her, warm yam and palm oil, a cup of steaming tea. Her heart raced. Danny had stayed. She sat up quickly, looking around, but the bed beside her was empty. Her breath caught. No, not again. Had he left while she slept? Had he changed his mind? Had she been foolish to hope? Just as fear gripped her chest, the door creaked open. Danny walked in, but he was not alone. Beside him was an old man, his hair white like fresh coconut flesh, his staff tapping the ground with every step he took. His eyes were sharp, filled with knowing. "Kachi, meet Awo," Danny said. "He is a powerful herbalist." Kachi frowned. "Herbalist? Why?" she began. But Awo raised his hand, stopping her words. "My daughter," Awo said, his voice deep like distant thunder. "Give me your pants." Kachi's face burned with shame. "My what?" she whispered. "Your pants," Awo repeated firmly. "Give it to me." Kachi hesitated, but something in the old man's eyes told her that this was important. Slowly, she reached for the one she had removed the night before and handed it to him. Awo took it without flinching. He brought out a small calabash filled with dark water, murmured some words under his breath, and dipped the pants inside. The moment the fabric touched the water, a foul stench filled the room. Thicker, stronger, worse than ever before. The air became heavy. The walls seemed to shake. Danny stepped back, covering his nose. But Awo, he did not even blink. He simply looked up and said, "This is no ordinary smell. This is a curse." Kachi's heart pounded. "A curse?" she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Awo nodded. "We must see your father now." At Chief Coco's house, the air was tense. Awo stood tall before the chief, holding the calabash in his hands. "What did you do to your daughter?" Awo's voice rang through the room, firm, unshaken. Chief Coco sighed deeply, looking away. Kachi sat on the floor, watching her father waiting, her hands trembling in her lap. She had never seen her father speechless before. Owl stepped closer. Speak, Chief Coco. The spirits have shown me the truth, but I want to hear it from your mouth. The chief closed his eyes as if the weight of the past had finally caught up with him. And then he spoke. When Kachi was a child, she was too beautiful, he began, his voice heavy. Too beautiful for this world. He looked at Kachi, his eyes filled with something she had never seen before, regret. Powerful chiefs came from all over asking to marry her. She was only 4 years old, but they already wanted to claim her. One chief, a man feared by many, brought gifts, yams, goats, fine clothes. He said he would return when she turned 10 to take her as his wife. Kachi's breath caught. Your mother and I refused. We told him to take his gifts and go, but he was angry. His words still haunt me. Chief Coco swallowed hard, then whispered, Then she will have no one but me. The room fell silent. Kachi's hands gripped her knees. Papa, what are you saying? Chief Coco rubbed his face as if trying to wipe away years of guilt. We were afraid. We did not want you to be taken away. We knew men who don't love you will come for you just because of my wealth, as the richest man in the land. They would want to take advantage of you. They would want to rip you off the wealth when I'm gone. So your mother and I ran to a powerful herbalist for help. He gave us a special substance. He said, rub this on her panties every day. She will smell so bad that no man will come near her. Kachi's body turned cold. Her fingers dug into the floor. No, she whispered. Her father nodded slowly. And it worked. From the moment we started using it, people stopped coming. The chiefs left. The threats ended. For the first time, we had peace. Awo shook his head. But you did not know, he said, his voice low, that the substance was cursed. Chief Coco nodded. We only wanted to protect her. We thought it would wear off. We thought we were protecting her from fake love. Kachi's lips trembled. Papa, you did this to me? Her voice cracked, the pain spilling into the room like flood water. Her father reached out, but she jerked away. You let me suffer. You let me believe something was wrong with me. You let men run from me, laugh at me, steal from me. Tears poured from her eyes. All this time I thought I was cursed, but it was you. Chief Coco dropped to his knees before her. Forgive me, my daughter, he begged. Kachi shook her head. Her whole life, every heartbreak, every tear she had shed, every night she cried herself to sleep. It had all been because of her own father. She had been cursed not by fate, not by spirits, but by the very man who claimed to love her the most. The room was silent. Only the sound of Kachi's quiet sobs filled the air. Her whole life had been a lie. Chief Coco sat on the floor, his head bowed in shame. He had done this to his own daughter. He had cursed her, thinking he was protecting her. Awo stood tall, his staff planted firmly on the ground. The curse can be broken, he finally said. Kachi lifted her head, her eyes red from crying. How? She whispered. Awo turned to Chief Coco. You must make a sacrifice, he said. Chief Coco's body stiffened. What kind of sacrifice? You must take an offering to the river, Awo explained. But before that, you must go to your wife's grave and place the offering there. She was part of this. Her spirit must know that the curse is being lifted. Chief Coco nodded slowly. I will do it, he said, his voice heavy with guilt. That night, under the full moon, Chief Coco, Awo, and Danny walked to the grave of Kachi's mother. Chief Coco knelt down, placed a white cloth on the ground, and laid the offering, yam, palm oil, and a piece of Kachi's cursed pants on top. Forgive me, he whispered to his wife's grave. owl chanted ancient words, calling on the spirits, calling on the land, calling on the river. Then they took the rest of the sacrifice to the river. Chief Coco stepped forward and with shaking hands dropped the offering into the water. The moment the items touched the river, the wind shifted. The air became lighter. The weight that had followed Kachi all her life suddenly lifted. The curse was gone. The next morning, Kachi woke up feeling different. The air around her felt fresh, clean. She touched her skin. It felt new. Then she took a deep breath. Nothing, no smell. Her heart pounded. Could it be? She quickly dressed and ran outside. People were already gathered. They had heard of the ritual. They had come to see for themselves. Kachi walked past them, her chest tight with fear. Nobody covered their nose. Nobody whispered. Nobody ran. Instead, they stared, their eyes wide with shock. Kachi no longer smells, someone finally said. The word spread like wildfire. The curse is gone. Kachi is free. Kachi stopped, her hands covering her mouth. Tears spilled down her face. She turned to Danny, the man who had stayed, the man who had believed in her. Thank you, she whispered, her voice breaking. Danny smiled, wiping her tears. You are free now, Kachi. Chief Coco was overwhelmed with joy. His guilt would never fully leave, but at least now, his daughter had a chance at happiness. He called Danny into his chambers and said, You truly love my daughter. You did not run. You fought for her. And for that, I will give you half of my wealth. Danny, once a simple carpenter, now had riches beyond his dreams. But that was not what mattered. What mattered was that Kachi was finally free. For the first time in her life, there was no smell, no runaway husband, no more tears, just love. And so, Kachi and Danny lived happily ever after. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.